I signed the divorce papers on a Tuesday. The pen felt heavier than I expected. Not because I still loved her, but because I had spent 7 years trying to. That morning, I walked out of the courthouse alone. The sky was the kind of gray that doesn't promise rain, just hangs there, heavy and undecided. I sat in my car for 20 minutes without turning the key. I wasn't sad. I wasn't relieved. I was just empty, like a room where all the furniture has been removed and you can finally see how small it actually was. Her name was Priya, my ex-wife. We met in college, married young, and spent most of our marriage being polite strangers who shared a bed. No screaming, no drama, just a slow, quiet kind of dying, the kind that's almost worse because there's nothing specific to blame. What I didn't expect, what I never could have prepared for, was what happened 3 weeks after the divorce was finalized and who it came from. I need to tell you about Mira first. Mira was Priya's younger sister, 2 years younger, quieter, completely different in every way that mattered. Where Priya was sharp and ambitious and always looking slightly past you when she spoke, Mira had this quality of stillness, like she was actually present, like she actually heard you. I had known Mira for almost 8 years. She was part of the background of my marriage. Family dinners, festivals, occasional phone calls when Priya wasn't available and someone needed to relay a message. We were friendly, comfortable, the way you get with someone you see regularly but never think about when they're not in the room. Or at least, that's what I told myself. The truth is more complicated, and I think I knew it, somewhere beneath everything, for a long time. After the divorce, I moved into a small apartment on the other side of the city. Second floor, 1 bedroom, a balcony that overlooked a quiet street with a tea stall on the corner. I told myself the simplicity would help me reset, and for a few weeks it did. I went back to work, I cooked simple meals, I slept earlier than I ever had during my marriage. I didn't expect anyone from Priya's family to stay in touch. That's usually how it works. You divorce the person, you lose the people attached to them. It's a clean break, even when it isn't. So when Mira called me on a Thursday evening, 22 days after the divorce was finalized, I almost didn't pick up. I stared at her name on the screen for 4 full rings. Then something made me answer. "I just wanted to check if you're okay," she said. No greeting, no small talk, just that. I didn't know what to say. Nobody had asked me that. My friends had asked how the divorce went. My mother had asked about the property settlement. My colleagues had asked when I'd be back at full capacity. But nobody had asked if I was okay. "I'm fine," I said, because that's what you say. She was quiet for a second. Then, "You don't have to be fine with me." I laughed a little, surprised by it. That's a strange thing to say. Is it? I sat down on my balcony. The tea stall below was still open, its single yellow bulb catching the evening dust. I don't know why, but I felt something unlock in my chest, just slightly. "I'm managing," I said, more honestly this time. "That's different from okay." "Yes," I admitted. "It is." We talked for almost an hour that night, about nothing heavy. She asked about my apartment, I described the tea stall. She told me she'd moved to a new job recently, something in content writing, and that she was still getting used to working from home. We talked about food and about a documentary she'd been watching, and about how strange it felt when a chapter of life closed and you weren't sure which door to open next. When we hung up, I sat there in the dark for a while, and I realized I felt lighter than I had in months. She called again the following week, then the week after that. It became almost every other day. I wasn't tracking it consciously. It just became a rhythm, something I looked forward to without letting myself look too closely at why. We never talked about Priya, not directly. It was an unspoken agreement. That chapter was separate. This, whatever this was its own thing. One evening she asked me, "Do you regret it, the marriage?" I thought about it, really thought about it. I regret not being honest sooner, with her, with myself. We weren't right for each other. We both knew it. We just kept hoping it would correct itself. She knew it too, Mira said quietly, a long time ago. I didn't ask more, but something about hearing that settled something in me, a guilt I hadn't even fully named. "Can I ask you something?" I asked. "Yes." "Why are you still calling me? I mean, I'm not asking you to stop. Your family must think it's strange." She was quiet for a moment. "My family doesn't know." That surprised me. "Oh, is that a problem?" I looked out at the street. The tea stall was busy. Two men sat on plastic stools talking with their hands. A dog slept near the gutter, completely unbothered by the world. "No," I said, "it's not a problem." But something shifted after that. Not uncomfortably, more like a light being adjusted. Suddenly, I was more aware of her voice, of the way she phrased things, of how she always listened without interrupting, and when she spoke, it felt considered, like she'd weighed her words before offering them. I started to think about her between calls, not obsessively, but in that quiet, involuntary way. When I'd be making tea and a thought would surface, I should tell Mira about this. When something funny happened at work, and my first instinct was to save it for her. I tried to reason with myself. She was my ex-wife's sister. The timing was absurd. The situation was complicated. These were good, solid, logical reasons to keep things exactly where they were. But the heart doesn't negotiate with logic. It just keeps feeling what it feels, quietly and persistently, until you can't pretend you don't notice it anymore. About 6 weeks after that first call, she asked if she could visit. She was going to be in my part of the city for a work meeting and asked if I wanted to get coffee after. I said yes before I finished reading the message. We met at a small cafe near my office. I got there first. I chose a corner table near the window, then second-guessed it, then stayed anyway. When she walked in, I felt something I hadn't felt in years, that specific electric awareness of someone entering a room. She looked the same as I remembered. Dark hair pulled back, simple clothes, a canvas bag over one shoulder. But she was different up close, after all those weeks of just her voice. More present, more real. She saw me and smiled. Not a wide, performative smile, just a quiet, recognizing one. Like, "There you are." We ordered coffee. She got black. I got mine with too much sugar, which she commented on with a raised eyebrow. "I've always had a complicated relationship with bitterness," I said. She laughed, an actual laugh, not polite, real. We talked for 2 hours, the kind of talking where you don't notice the time until a waiter refills your water glass for the third time and you realize the cafe has half emptied around you. We talked about childhood, about what we had wanted to be before life started having its own opinions. She told me about a year she spent trying to be a painter before accepting she was much better at describing art than creating it. I told her about the 6 months after college when I almost moved to another city to study film, but chose the safe path instead. "Do you regret the safe path?" she asked. "Sometimes," I said, "but I think the safe path taught me things the other one wouldn't have." She looked at me thoughtfully. "Like what?" "That I'm more resilient than I gave myself credit for." She nodded slowly, something in her eyes that I couldn't fully read. When we finally stood to leave, we walked out together and stood on the pavement in that particular awkward moment when you're not sure how to end an evening that felt too good to end. The city moved around us, horns and voices and the smell of street food drifting from somewhere nearby. "This was nice," she said. "It was," I agreed. And then, without planning it, I said, "We should do this again." She smiled. "I was hoping you'd say that." We met 3 more times over the following month. Coffee once, a walk through a book market on a Sunday morning, a quiet dinner at a restaurant I'd been wanting to try for a year and hadn't gotten around to. Each time felt like the last one had been practice for this one. Each time I understood a little more why I looked forward to her. She was honest without being harsh. She asked real questions. She wasn't performing. She didn't need me to perform either. And slowly, almost without my permission, I was falling. I knew it the night I came home from our third dinner and sat on my balcony and just felt it,
full and terrifying and warm all at once. This is real. This is not just comfort or gratitude or loneliness filling itself with whatever was nearby. This was something specific, something that had her name on it. But the weight of what it meant pressed back immediately. She was Priya's sister. The divorce was fresh. Priya didn't know about these meetings. The family didn't know. And even if the marriage had been over for a long time before the papers said so, people don't always understand that. People see the timeline. People make assumptions. People talk. And even beyond all of that, did Mira feel any of this? Or was I a project for her, someone she felt sorry for, someone she was helping through a hard time out of simple human kindness? I didn't ask. I was afraid of the answer in both directions. Then came the night everything changed. It was a Sunday. She had come to my apartment for the first time. We'd decided to cook dinner instead of going out. She brought ingredients. I cleared my kitchen counter and tried to look like someone who cooked regularly when I absolutely did not. We made a simple meal: dal, rice, a vegetable dish she knew from memory. She moved around my kitchen with ease. I stood slightly in her way more than I helped, which she pointed out exactly twice before giving me the task of stirring and nothing else. We ate on the balcony. The tea stall below was closed for once. The street was quiet. The air had that particular evening quality where everything feels slightly suspended. We were almost done eating when she put her fork down and looked at me with that expression she sometimes got, the one that meant she was about to say something she'd been holding for a while. "Can I ask you something?" she said. "Of course." She looked at her plate first, then up at me. "Are you happy right now, in this, with how things are?" My chest tightened. "I'm the happiest I've been in a long time," I said carefully. She nodded slowly, something working itself out behind her eyes. Then she said it, quietly, the way you say something when you've been carrying it for so long that saying it out loud feels like finally setting down a heavy bag. "I've been thinking about something, and I don't want to make things strange, but I think if I don't say it, I'll regret it." "Say it," I told her. My voice was steadier than I felt. She looked at me, directly, without flinching. "I want this, properly. I want—" She paused, took a breath. "I know the situation. I know everything that makes this complicated, but I also know that the last 2 months have felt more real to me than most things in my life recently." Another pause. "So I'm asking, not lightly, very carefully." She looked down for a moment, then back up. "Would you want to be with me, properly?" The world was quiet. The street was quiet. I was quiet. And then, softer, almost to herself as much to me, she whispered, "Be my husband." I didn't speak for a long moment, not because I was uncertain, but because the weight of it, the beauty and the gravity and the absolute sincerity of it needed a moment to land. "Mira," I finally said, "you don't have to answer right now. I want to answer right now." She waited, her eyes steady on mine. "I've been falling for you since long before I let myself admit it. And yes, more than anything right now, yes." She exhaled, like she'd been holding her breath longer than just this conversation. We didn't kiss that night. We just sat there on that balcony, letting it be real. That was enough, more than enough. It was the beginning of something that deserved to begin slowly. But beginnings, real ones, always carry the weight of everything that came before them. The next few weeks were both the best and the hardest of my life. Best because of what was growing between us. Every morning I woke up knowing there was something good. Every time I heard from her, something in me settled. We were careful, tender, building something with intention. Hard because of everything outside of us.
Priya found out 3 weeks later, not from us, from a cousin who had seen us at the book market. I don't know exactly what was said. I only know Mira called me that evening, her voice different, not broken, but strained. "She knows," she said. I closed my eyes. "How is she?" "Angry, hurt. She doesn't think she has a right to be, but she is anyway. A pause. I didn't hide this to hurt her. I just needed to figure out what this was before bringing it into that. I know, I said. She's not wrong to feel what she feels. No, I agreed, she's not. But I'm also not wrong. No, I said again, you're not. It was quiet for a moment. Then Mira said, I told her I love you. My heart stopped. You did? Yes. What did she say? She didn't say anything for a long time. Then she said, take care of him, which is either generous or the saddest thing she's ever said. I don't know which. I didn't know either. Maybe both. The family was complicated. Mira's parents were confused, not cruel, but not immediately understanding. There were conversations I wasn't part of. There were silences between Mira and her mother that stretched for days. There was a distance that opened up in a family that had always been close, and both of us knew we were the reason. I won't pretend that didn't cost something. It did. It cost both of us something real. There were nights when the doubt came, not about Mira, about the rest, about whether any love was worth fracturing something that others depended on, about whether I was, in some unconscious way, repeating patterns or running toward comfort too quickly. I talked to a friend about it, an old friend, someone who knew me before the marriage, during it, and after. He listened without interrupting, which was unusual for him. When he finished, he was quiet for a bit. Then he said, do you actually believe you're doing something wrong, or are you just afraid of what people think? That question sat with me for days, because the honest answer was, I didn't believe it was wrong. Complicated, yes. Uncomfortable, yes, but not wrong. The divorce was real. The pain in my marriage had been real long before any of this. And what I felt for Mira was not impulsive. It had grown slowly and honestly, and in spite of every reasonable argument against it. I called Mira that night. I've been thinking, I said. I know, she said. Me too. Are you having doubts? She was quiet. Then, about us? No. About whether I can manage everything around us? Every day. Me too, I said. But I keep coming back to the same thing, she said. When I imagine walking away from this, I can't do it. I've tried to imagine it, and I can't. I felt the same way, like trying to imagine giving up something that had quietly become necessary. Then we figure out the rest, I said. Yes, she said, we figure out the rest. It wasn't a dramatic declaration. It wasn't the kind of moment they put in films. It was two people, tired and a little scared, choosing each other anyway, choosing to hold on to the thing that felt true, even when everything around it felt uncertain. Priya and Mira found their way back to each other slowly. It took months. There were difficult conversations I was not part of and probably should not have been. But slowly, the way wounds close, unevenly and not always cleanly, something healed. Not everything, but enough. Mira told me about a day they met for lunch, just the two of them. She said it was quiet and a little formal at first, and then somewhere in the middle, Priya started laughing at something old they both remembered, and for a moment it was almost normal. She's going to be okay, Mira told me after. I know, I said. She's stronger than she lets on. She said the same thing about you once. When? Long ago, before things got bad between you two. She paused. She always respected you. She just couldn't make it work. Neither of you could. That was, in its strange way, the most healing thing anyone had said to me about the end of my marriage. Months passed. Mira and I were not in a hurry. We didn't rush toward labels or milestones. We just moved through time together, honestly, letting things grow at their own pace. I learned things about her I couldn't have guessed from those early phone calls, that she was terrified of moths, but absolutely unbothered by spiders, which she found philosophically inconsistent in herself, that she cried at the endings of stories she'd already read twice, that she made decisions slowly but kept them permanently, that she cooked everything well except rice, which was the one thing I could manage, so we divided labor accordingly. I learned that she remembered small things, what I'd mentioned wanting to try weeks ago, what was worrying me on a Thursday that she'd check in about on a Monday,
what kind of silences I needed versus which ones meant something was wrong. She learned me, and I learned her, without performance, without the exhaustion of pretending. One evening, maybe 8 months after that night on the balcony, we were sitting in her apartment. She was reading. I was pretending to read, but actually watching her and thinking about how strange and specific and entirely unplanned this life could be. How you could end one chapter expecting only loss and somehow, impossibly, find yourself at the beginning of something that felt like the one you'd been looking for all along. She looked up and caught me watching. "What?" she said. "Nothing," I said. "Just thinking."
About? I considered for a moment. About how I almost didn't answer your first call. She smiled, slow and warm. I almost didn't make it. Why did you? She looked at the book in her hands, then set it down. Because I thought, if not now, when? At some point you have to stop being careful and start being honest, even when it's complicated. I nodded. I'm glad you did, I said, both times, that first call and the balcony. She held my gaze. Me too. We are not a simple story. I know that. We are not the kind of story people tell without a raised eyebrow. We are the kind of story that takes time to understand, that requires context, that lives in the complicated middle ground between what looks clean from the outside and what is true from the inside. But every real love is a complicated story. The easy ones, the ones without friction, without cost, without the kind of choices that keep you up at night, I'm not sure those are love so much as luck, or timing, or just two people who happen to want the same things at the same moment. What Nira and I found was built in the aftermath of something painful. It was built slowly, honestly, with full knowledge of the cost. It was built by two people who knew each other's edges and chose to stay anyway. She whispered 3 words on a balcony, and the world shifted. I thought divorce was an ending, and in one way it was. It was the ending of something that had been quietly dying for years. It was the ending of a version of myself that kept choosing safety over honesty. But it was also the beginning of the most real thing I have ever felt. She is asleep now as I write this. One lamp is on. The apartment is quiet. Tomorrow we have things to do. Ordinary, unglamorous, necessary things. Grocery shopping and emails and a call with her parents that will probably be easier than the last one. And I am happy. Genuinely, quietly, completely happy. Not the temporary kind that spikes and fades. The steady kind. The kind that knows it was earned. I didn't plan any of this. But I think that's the thing about the love that actually lasts. It doesn't arrive when you're ready. It doesn't ask for a convenient time. It shows up in the middle of your wreckage, quiet and patient, and waits for you to have the courage to choose it. I'm glad I did. I'm glad she asked. If you liked this video, don't forget to hit the like button and subscribe to the channel. Thanks.